So I see we got people from all over the place. Well, konnichiwa, watashi wa Rob-san. Why am I speaking in Japanese? Well, we have a very special day today. And I want to welcome you all to EFLtalks Business. This is our first online presentation for business. And we got a great lineup that you can see here. And this is kind of different and very special. What we're doing is what we're doing today is we're actually recording this, and we're doing this in cooperation with the IATEFL BESIG, which I am the joint online coordinator. And we're also doing this for JALT BizCom SIG in Tokyo, Japan. And we're recording this, and all this will be shown on a large screen in Japan in just a few weeks, but we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. So to give you an idea, let's get started with today's event. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Rob Howard. And I'm the founder, the host, the janitor, everything for EFLtalks. And I'm so glad that you're joining us today. And EFLtalks, for those of you who don't know it, is all about teachers teaching teachers. And the whole concept is that we're helping others for the future of education. And for the speakers, it's 10 and 10. This is our little hook. The speakers only have 10 minutes, and they can only use 10 PowerPoint slides to present their presentation. And the idea of this is we wanted to give something fast to give you an idea of what's going on. We want something free because this is watched by over 1 million views around the world, and we wanted it to be fun. So I will be cutting them off if they talk longer than 10 minutes. So you can find out everything on www.efltalks.com. It's the landing page for all the information. It has our Twitter, it has our YouTube channel, it's got our Facebook groups and all the information you need. Unfortunately, it's down because they're upgrading the server right now in the US, but it should be back up hopefully Monday or Tuesday. And you'll be able to see the site again. And when you go to the site, you'll see what our mission is. You can get all the information about all our speakers. We were nominated for the Elton's Award back in 2016. And also about our companion guide and what's coming up. So everything will be there. Come back and visit next week. And our YouTube channel is where we have all the videos now. We've taken them off the website and put them strictly onto YouTube. And what you can do is you can go through and you can look for specific content. You can search through by EFL Talker. You can go by playlist for each of the events. Or all the videos are there, and you can watch everything, always available for free. And just to give you an idea, so far, it's been coming up on, it's a little over 2.5 years now. In 2.5 years, what we've been able to do is we've got over 190 EFL talkers. There's over 290 videos there for you to watch about continuing professional development. We've had over 16 online events. We've had one live event just a few weeks ago in Brazil. And we're reaching over 200 countries. We figured it up. We're just coming up now on 48 hours of teacher development recordings that you can watch. So if you're sitting at home in bed, sick on the weekend, you can watch all of them. We've had over 500,000 viewers, and We've had now over 1 million views, so help spread the word. Any teachers you know, get them involved, and we'd love you too. If you haven't talked yet, come and join us and be an EFL talker. So, just to give you an idea, some of the things we've done. Dzień dobry from Poland. Hi, Joanne. And we started off with our first event in October of 2015. And bonjour. You want me to say all these languages? Forget it, I won't. We started off with our first event. It was a 10-hour event, and you can see all our different events we've had here. Some specifically for teacher associations, some for countries. We've been in the Middle East. We've done a few for Greece, Belgium. We just did one for Africa. We've done Brazil, Latin America, Ecuador. I hope I didn't leave anybody out. Middle East, Central America. And we're also done specific things. For instance, one of the ones I'm most proud of is the International Women's Day, which we did a great 2-day show. If you really want to see some inspiring talks, watch International Women's Day. And today we're going to start our new business thread, which we've been working on. So we have a great lineup, as I said. Unfortunately, at the last minute, Alex Morgan had to bow out. She has some things that she has to deal with back home. But we've got the rest of the speakers here, and we'll be getting to them very soon. And the EFL talkers are growing. You can see, if you look through here, you see a lot of very famous faces. But it's not about being famous. It's not about years of experience. It's not about how many books or how many speeches you've given. It's about being a teacher. And some of the people that are presented here are first-year teachers. And it's to give ideas from different points of view. And it's very exciting. So we hope to see your picture up here one day. And we'll talk about more of this later on, but let's go back right now. And let's see, so we have a lot of people here. Just so you know, I've told all the speakers, don't pay attention to the chat room, because I'll talk to you there and we'll give you some answers there. Because they only have 10 minutes to get their point across. And believe me, it's very difficult to get a teacher to talk for only 10 minutes. Look at me. I'm talking for 8 minutes now. You can't shut me up. But we're getting ready to start. And we'll bring up our first speaker now. And all I have to do is go through this list and find our speaker, and we'll turn them on. So Ron, get ready as soon as I can find you in the list. There we go. I'm going to turn on your microphone and camera. And there you are. Let me bring up your slides. And let me introduce my good friend, Ron Moraine. He's co-founder and DOS at the Language Learning Center in Germany. He's active in HRM and HRD as a manager, and he's been a consultant for over 30 years. And that doesn't even do him justice, but I don't have an hour to tell you all the great things this guy has done. But Ron, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
And
can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you fine. And
great.
Ready? Remember, 10 minutes this time. And
I totally agree that it's very difficult to talk for just 10 minutes.
Yes. Okay, so you ready to go? I'm going to give you total control. And you got it? Ready? Thanks again.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks everybody. And let me just say that it's pretty difficult to talk about mind mapping and the combination of task-based learning and problem-based learning, project-based learning, and how to connect that to mind mapping. Well, what I want to talk about very quickly are 10 reasons why you should be using mind mapping, task-based learning, and project-based learning in second language acquisition for adults. And whether you're working in an academic or corporate environment, the basics basically stay, well, everything really stays the same. After about 20 years of implementing it, I've come up with these 10 things that maybe I can share with you, or I would like to share with you, about why we should be doing that in the classroom with adults. First of all, using TBL and mind mapping together help to activate the 4 C's of learning. So, of course, we know that the 4 C's of learning are part of 21st century skills, and those are communication, creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking. Very quickly, I always try to, when I say communication, emphasize the active skills of speaking and writing. Creativity, if you're doing task-based learning correctly or project-based learning, in the end, students do have to create a product, and you have to help them to make those choices they need to make in order to feel some sort of success in TBL. Collaboration, we as teachers should always be promoting group work, teamwork, and also collaboration with the teacher. Critical thinking, basically here I'll just say getting away and teaching students to get away from status quo thinking, group think, and prescribed consensus, and also secret learning. Let's move on to the second one here. Here are just some quick things that we might already all know about. And one of them is using TBL, PBL, and mind mapping together in adult education helps to remove the very traditional approaches that many teachers may have when it comes to like chalk and talk. Very frontal, stand in front of the board, write some things with the chalk, and most of the talking is usually done by the teacher. As I observe teachers, and this is part of my job, we try to help them to get away with that by helping them to understand TBL, PBL, and maybe some mind mapping techniques to help them to really concentrate on student-centered learning instead of teacher-centered learning. Reduce print and push, which is more means good preparation is not standing in front of a copy machine and printing from a textbook with prescribed grammar, but basically getting the students to really find the work themselves, research and curate the work so that they really have a big choice in what's going on in that classroom. Reduce drill and kill, which is just repeatedly going into the class doing the same thing. Some of it down to just basically getting them to conjugate verbs in very specific grammar tenses. I think adults get pretty bored of that after a while. Of course, I don't ever do it. Promote voice and choice. This is one of the big things, getting people to take responsibility for their own self-development and having a voice in creating the learning and learning strategies that will help them to feel successful and reach their goals. That's how I define voice and choice. 3, integrate technology into the second language learning experience. For me, working at a university, I am required to use Moodle. So, of course, Moodle is the basis in my learning management system that I have to use. But again, I also try to get students to use smartphones, iPads, laptops, apps, internet, and all the other things that can help them to successfully reach their goals. And of course, working with young people today, it's just very normal to integrate technology into the learning process. I try very much to create meaningful learning experiences for my adults that I'm working with, whether it's academic or corporate. And one of them is to simply always use mind mapping techniques in the classroom and to elicit some of the ideas that they may have, which of course means that we always come up with some kind of worksheet that is the result of the mind mapping. And if you look very closely here, you can see that I also help them to rate some of the reading articles that they bring into class. Of course, the reading articles is what they research and curate themselves. That sort of helps to understand an example of meaningful learning. Number 5, to optimize and energize the in-class learning experience. Working with adults across Europe, I've always found that the older adults who I've worked with come with very traditional ideas of learning, are very surprised that task-based learning means they have to take the responsibility of helping to put the class together. This is something new for them, and something definitely new if you're working with non-European cultures a lot of times. I do a lot of online learning, so with my MBA students, And this helps mind mapping, task-based learning, problem-based learning, project-based learning it helps to optimize that. Time management versus think time. Sometimes we expect students to come up with answers very quickly. We do not give them the think time that they need in order to give us the answer that we're looking for. So we've got to be able to incorporate that into the learning process, and TBL, PBL, and mind mapping helps them to do that. They also have to learn to do good time management. I do a lot of exam-oriented learning, and so they need to learn how to incorporate time management into how they're doing things. Number 6, reduce text-heavy course books. Many of us work in learning environments where we work with textbooks. I don't, and neither does my school, but we do use textbooks. I do find them to be okay in some learning situations, but I definitely do not use them in any of my lectures nor in any of the classes, but I do use them as reference books to help me put classes together. I try to get away from prescribed learning, which sometimes is given inside the course books, pre-given grammar structures. I don't think anybody walks around speaking in the present simple all day long, so we do need to mix the grammar structures in a very natural way. And of course, I always try to create lessons that I can recycle. And I know that the dynamics change from group to group, but it's always good to create some great lessons that I've tried out and experimented with that I can use again in another class or another group. Number 7, support skills learning. Use their existing base. What do they bring to the classroom that will help them to reach their goals? What skills do they have with their mother language that they can use in their second language learning experience? And along the way, and I really like that part, is that they're learning a lot of new skills. And they're very appreciative at the end when they really reflect on what they've learned, and not just the language itself, but all the skills that came along with that and that appeared in the second language learning experience. Number 8, promote storytelling. Well, every adult has a story to tell, and they want you to create opportunities or situations that will help them to tell those stories. And it's our job to help them create strategies to find the language that they're going to need to tell that story, because all human beings do have a story to tell. And also to be able to transfer that story into English. They also not only transfer the story, but they transfer a lot of the knowledge and wisdom that they have. This is, of course, most of the time what I do in coaching with managers and executives. They need to tell more detailed stories and be able to sit down with other people from other cultures. So this is what we do with them. And task-based learning, mind mapping, and project-based learning helps them to do that. Number 9, incorporate different teaching approaches. Well, it starts with mind mapping, and many teachers might not know how to do that effectively. If you look me up on Google, you might find something on YouTube or with some YouTube video that will help you to learn a little bit more about how to incorporate mind mapping into the learning process. But also, why don't you Google what TBL is and PBL? When I say PBL, we're talking about problem-based learning, project-based learning, and phenomena-based learning. And if you can incorporate those into your classroom, even to the point of phenomena-based learning and service learning, you are really at a high point of learning, and your students will benefit from that greatly. The last thing is what it really is all about is creativity and product creation. PBL, TBL, whatever PBL it is, it's about getting people to create products. They can be anything as simple as a 120-word essay to more complicated research papers, but getting them to and helping them to find the language and get the skills that they're going to need to successfully present something, and in turn get some feedback from you, because in the end, presenting a product is one thing, but they also need feedback from you so that they know how to do and what to do afterwards to help to improve and go further in their process of self-development. So that's what I had to say today. Thank you, Rob. Thank you for inviting me, and it's very nice to see There's a lot of people here today, and this has been the first one I've done in quite some time. So thank you for letting me be the first one. And I can't believe I did it the first time in 10 minutes or less.
Congratulations, like perfect timing. Really, that was great, Ron. Thanks so much again for doing this. And it's always the hardest to be the first one too. So you're a trooper.
Thanks.
And thank you, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Okay, so hang on, and we shall move on. So while I bring up the next speaker, let me just tell you one thing I didn't mention before is Hind is here, and I'm sure Hind is taking pictures of herself. We have a thing called a EFLI, and a EFLI is a selfie with EFLtalks in the background. So take your camera, take a picture of yourself watching EFLtalks, excuse me, and we'll put them up on the page later on. And thanks to Hind, Hind is doing it already. Shanthi, let's see, I'm turning everything on for you. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hang on, let me get your slides up for you. Great, and you have control. Let me introduce Shanthi, for those of you who don't know her, and if you don't, I can't believe it. Shanthi Kumaraswamy, I still can't say, Kumaraswamy Street is an independent online business communications trainer. She helps, excuse me, she helps professionals free themselves from the shackles of perfect English, which I can't speak, and coach them to become fearless business communicators. And Shanthi, she always forgets, this is her second EFL talk. She was here for our very first time. And it's great to have you back after all these years.
Great to be back. I can't remember. Yeah. How long ago was the first one?
Almost 3 years ago. So it's a lot.
Okay. Let's not discuss how fast time goes.
Yes, back when you were 16. Okay?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have you here. And we got your timer set for 10 minutes. So ready to go? You have controls?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Take it away.
Okay, great. Hi, it's lovely to be here. And as Rob said, I am an independent business trainer, and I have my own business called English with a Twist. And today, very different from Ron's, which is much more sort of academic, I want to share with you some of the tools I've implemented in my business if you were to be an online teacher and how to manage your time when it comes to new client inquiries. And so bringing in some tools that I've used that have helped me. So hey, you get a new client inquiry online, and I've had that before, and you think, fantastic, this is wonderful. But the initial excitement then soon turns to frustration when after a month of email exchanges with the student, you're still not anywhere near getting this client to sign up to you and to your program of lessons or sessions or whatever you're doing. So it's a real time sink and a lot of energy wasting. So what you really need is a client onboarding system. So what am I talking about? And this is what I'm going to be looking at. And this is what I want to share with you. This is what you're going to need to have a client onboarding system. You need a lead page, questionnaire, contract, payment system, online calendar, online platform for your lessons, and a welcome pack. And I know you're looking at this going, oh my word, there's an awful lot of stuff I need. But let's take one step at a time, and I'll show you what I'm doing here. Because the idea for me is for you to halve the time it takes to deal with inquiries and get that client on board. Here we go. So first of all, what you want to do is you want to create a page, a sales page, a lead page, whatever you want to call it, on your website. And that's where you're showcasing your services, your programs, whatever you offer your clients. But really, you want to have good copy where you're giving them a problem and where you're showcasing yourself as a solution for the client's problems. Define your packages. You want to show your prices and explain how you work with your clients, what sort of clients you want and how you're going to work with them. And then invite them to apply to work with you. Now, some client, when I started, we have this idea that we're going to accept every client or every student. Not necessarily. Asking them to apply to work with us also gives us that certain kudos of saying, hey, I don't work with anyone. I am going to be selective. We have to be the right fit to work together. And that's what I mean. So inviting clients to apply to work with you is a great step first. So what do we do? How are we going to set this up? So what the next thing you want is, for your application form, you want a questionnaire. And it's a great way to also filter unwanted clients. For instance, I don't teach beginners because for what I work in, clients need to be at least strong, intermediate, and above because of the communication skills programs I have. So I am going to filter that. So I create a series of questions. You decide who's your ideal client, what do you want, all the questions you want, put that into a questionnaire. This also looks very professional because it also shows that you don't work with anyone. Also, you want to make very clear that if they're signing up to your programs, that they have the time to dedicate to the whatever work they're going to be doing with you. In terms of the tools, you can create a questionnaire using things like JotForm, Google Forms, or Typeform. I use JotForm and Typeform. It depends. And and it's really easy to set up with a series of questions. I have about 10 questions I ask potential clients to complete. Then what you do is, the great thing is also having a contract. So when you have this questionnaire and then people have submitted it and everything's gone well and you've accepted that client, then what you want to do is then create a contract, and you can easily do that with Google Docs and send the link to the client. You can also create an online contract where then clients can sign that contract online and send it. That is more using something like Dupsado, which is a CRM, client relationship management service. But a contract is super efficient and professional. It also outlines and clarifies and makes very clear your terms and conditions, how you're going to work, what you're expecting from your client, and what they can expect from you. And it looks very professional when you send a contract. Many times when people will where you have perhaps a program that is maybe a 4-week program, or so many lessons, but then people want to extend it because they've missed sessions. Well, your contract will determine your terms and conditions super clearly, and you can always refer back to that contract to tell them, hold on, I don't keep these classes open for forever. So that's one thing that's really important. And of course, you need, very importantly, a payment process. If working online, you want to make things as easy as possible. Get the contract, and the client signs the contract, and then you can then send them their invoice. The invoice, you can use things like PayPal, and because you can create the online invoices super easy. I have PayPal Business. It's free to set up, and you send the link. They receive it automatically, and there are reminders. Again, you can set that all up, send it to them, they get it, they pay. There are alternative payment methods like Stripe and Square, but you need to use a CRM like Dupsado, which is what I mentioned earlier. Stripe and Square allow clients to pay by credit card. PayPal does, but it costs a bit more. But PayPal so far for me has worked really well, and that helps people to do that. So you create the online invoice, send it off, and you can also put in reminders so it automatically goes out, so you don't have to think about that. And the client gets it, pays it, and as soon as they pay, then you can start the program. Very importantly, what I do is with my clients, when I send them the contract, they've signed, they've paid, as soon as they've paid, I send them a welcome pack. Now, I was recommended to create a welcome pack, and I created it using Google Docs. And why a welcome pack? Well, it overcomes buyer's remorse. You remember, how many times have you bought a course online? You spend quite a bit of money. We're talking substantial, $200, $400 or whatever it is. And once you've sent it, there's that moment where you think, oh gosh, was that the right thing? Was that the right, will I regret this? And you get that remorse and you start worrying. And the welcome pack, I start off with welcoming them and making them feel good about the decision they've made. And then from there, I outline exactly what they can expect from working with me. So it cuts out a lot of questions for them because it allows them to see what the experience is going to be like by sharing a welcome pack. So I'll tell them, hey, this is wonderful. I give them a copy of the contract again, a copy of their invoice, and I then share with them, tell them exactly what to expect next so they can see a step-by-step guide. And that reassures them, and that goes out automatically after they've made a payment. And you can schedule that as a reminder, and it goes out and it makes them feel good. And also, if you want to ask them any questions, you can do that. But yeah, buyer's remorse is very important to overcome that. Now, very importantly, if you're teaching online and you've got online sessions, one of the things that's been a godsend for me, which I only discovered this year, so hey, I was very late on, is to have an online calendar where your clients can schedule their sessions themselves. In the past, what I ended up doing was, connecting with them through email, WhatsApp, whatever it is, when are you free, and you're just going backwards and forwards, and it drives everyone insane. Have an online calendar. There are lots of apps out there. I use Acuity, but there's Calendly. Set it up. Give your clients flexibility to schedule and they can do that. And it's really easy to do. So no more exchanges. And then what you want to do is have your lesson platform. You can use Skype, you can use Zoom. I can share with you more information on Zoom if you want. The great thing about Zoom is it allows you to record and it allows you to have group calls with breakout rooms. Really great if you're offering group coaching sessions. And finally, these are other tools that I use. If you want to ask me questions about them, please feel free. Slack, which is a fantastic workspace software. YouTube I use, where I've recorded my sessions on Zoom and I share them with my clients because that's what I give them. SoundCloud for audio recordings. And finally, this Dupsado, which I haven't used yet, but it is definitely the thing that would automate your entire onboarding system so that you don't have to think about it. Hey, I nearly got there, didn't I?
I loved it. And I really like the idea of waterboarding your students. Oh, that's not what you said? I'm sorry.
No, that's after they've worked with me. During the programs.
That's teachers' remorse, right?
Yes.
Thanks so much. That was great. And I really recommend follow Shanti's blog. And if you want more information, she often posts some stuff in our groups. So take a look at our groups, and great resource. Great stuff. And thanks again, okay?
Thank you to you. Take care. Ciao.
Somewhere soon, okay?
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Thanks.
Okay, so moving on. Give me a second, and we will find our next speaker. And Rob, there we go. Yeah, we're gonna. I'll take care of it. How about now? We're getting it? Can you hear me? Do you have speakers on there, Rob? Your voice. Yeah. Say something. Better? Yeah, that's better. Forget the headphones.
Okay, cool. Yeah, forget the headset then, yeah.
Yeah. What was it, a USB headset?
No. Just kind of standard connector, but I'm not quite sure what the problem was.
Yeah, that was strange. Okay, but now we're perfect. Great. So those of you who have been around BESIG for a while, longer than I have, are no stranger to Rob. We lose one Rob, we gain another. Rob Zacco was with BESIG years before me, and I'm happy to follow in his Rob footsteps. So let me tell you a little bit about Rob. He's an educator, a writer, speaker, and manager based in Cologne, Germany. And his interests are systematic functional linguistics, evidence-based TEFL, and design thinking. And Rob, thanks so much for being here and doing this today. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you. So are you ready to do your first EFL talk?
I am, yeah. Thanks very much for having me.
So I'll give you 10 minutes. You've got control over everything, and take it away.
Okay, thanks, Rob. I'd like to start firstly by thanking Rob Howard for the organization today, also to IATEFL BESIG and to JALT BizCom for broadcasting these talks as well. As they will be shown to, Rob mentioned the figure of 1 million people, and that's quite exciting for all of us who'd like to get ideas out there and share with the wider community globally. I'd also like to thank Ron for a really good presentation. I thought methodologically very sound. I'm also a great proponent of task-based learning. And to Shanti for some, what I see as some really sound business workflows. And I think that's often the difference between whether a business is going to succeed or fail. Is how slick and efficient the workflows are. So thanks very much. I'd like to talk today about something quite different. We've spoken about methodology, we've spoken about workflows. I'd like to talk a little bit about philosophy perhaps and a little futurism. My theme today is the irreplaceable human. And it's something that I've quite enjoyed. My background at university was in philosophy. We studied the philosophy of mind. We looked at artificial intelligence, John Searle, the Turing test, and up until a certain point, this was all kind of theoretical. It was interesting. It was something you could discuss in the pub. And more recently, I found it sort of invaded my sort of social media space, people talking about, geez, do we still need teachers? How much longer will we still need teachers? You get quotes like this, simultaneous translations coming, language teachers will be redundant, and that starts people worrying. This comes against a backdrop of, this probably started when they started to use robots in manufacturing. Probably even before then, where people were wrecking the spinning jenny, during the Industrial Revolution. But machines are perhaps taking people's places, taking people's jobs. Should language teachers be worried? So Stephen Heppel, a specialist at Bournemouth University, suggests perhaps we should be worried. However, there's always a few voices of dissent. I quite enjoyed this particular quote. This is Philip Kerr. He's a lecturer and a blogger. I really enjoy his blog, by the way. And he says, predictions about the impact of technology on education have a tendency to be made by people with a vested interest in the technologies, And full disclosure at this point, I'm the director of pedagogy at Learnship Networks. We're based in Cologne. We are an edtech firm. Of course, you can see the marketing benefits, of arguing the pedagogical benefit of the technology that's being developed and new products and things like that. But are these claims overblown? Is it possible that we wake up one day, is it 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, and there actually is no need for us anymore as language teachers? His blog, as I said, is really interesting. There's a specific paragraph I'd like to pick out and address today, and it's on the right. I know there's a lot of writing, but what he's saying there is essentially, language doesn't work like other subjects, okay? So if you're learning physics or maths, you may have a linear curriculum. It may be possible to assess that in the sense that you've got 75% of it accurate or 85% accurate. But does language learning really work like that? I don't believe that. And I've seen in the past where salespeople have tried to sell language like that. The result has been an unhappy client who realizes after 6 months or a year of his language learning, he hasn't moved with the same lineal sort of projection that he expected. No, I'm not 25% better. What's going on? Why? Probably because language works differently to content subjects. This is one argument I'm quite sympathetic to. Maybe, and there's a lot of research going into using artificial intelligence in language testing. I mean, that's gone a lot further. On the left here, I found this paper online. That's by Zheng Yan at Cambridge University. This was published September last year. And it's a really interesting paper. What they were trying to do there is to categorize all the different sorts of mistakes that learners have made in the Cambridge assessment system over the years, and then to see, which ones can be corrected by computers and which ones can't. I have a lot of trouble for some of these things, specifically free writing text. It's very difficult for a computer to correct, where short answers are very, very easy. If X then Y, it's right or it's wrong. But for a C1 level essay type question, that's a little bit more difficult when we're talking about tone. We're talking about nuance, I think is the point. Anyway, Catherine Nielsen, she's actually the Chief Learning Officer at Voxy. They're a startup in New York, also sort of blended learning. She's very interesting as well. She publishes a number of papers. She has a number of patents. She's Dr. Nielsen. And this paper really caught my eye because she was looking at self-paced learning platforms. This is where there is no trainer. Okay, this is where we're trying to replace the trainer with computers. And what they found, and you can see I've highlighted, the most striking finding that she made was a severe participant attrition. People start out like you might at the gym. I'm going to get fit this summer. I'm going to get a bikini body. Whatever, you go 3, 4, 5 times and you stop going. Okay, people just dropped off the program. Why? There are many theories about why. Actually, the US Department of Education did some research into it, and they found basically they're missing the instructor. They're missing a human being. They're missing a community. People psychologically just, I don't know, they get a bit bored. They just lose interest and they stop using the program. So far, at least in early e-learning, where the instructor was replaced, they were not as successful as they wanted to be. Why is that happening? So if we look at the MIT Technology Review, this was from a couple of years ago. I think the problem is still current. Machines that truly understand language would be incredibly useful, but we don't know how to build. Okay. And going on from that, Fei Li, she's the director of the Stanford Artificial Intelligence Lab. She says AI researchers have to think about things like emotional and social intelligence. Humans are terrible at computing with huge data, but we're great at abstraction and creativity. And my argument has always been, that's where humans are fantastic. That's where teachers are fantastic. And that's where we actually create the value. How does this connect to business English? How does this connect to synchronous online learning? I mean, LearnShip's model, was always to have keep the trainer at the heart of it. The human being is at the center of our solution because we basically don't believe it can be replaced. Why? Because business discourse is all about how people communicate using talk or writing in commercial organizations to get their work done. Okay, it's not that predictable as to which language is going to get the result that you want. And there, Rob mentioned earlier my interest in systemic functional linguistics. Essentially, that's a way of seeing language as a series of tools and an awareness of when to use each tool. Okay, so you want to increase students' range of language, and you want to increase their sense of appropriacy, which is, I'm going to use this tool for this situation. And that takes a lot of reading the room. It takes a lot of, charm and, understanding the sort of ecosystem within which you're operating. And right now, it would be quite hard to replace the human sort of role as a conversational counterpart or somebody who can be role-playing with you and feeding back. Machines are not there. Let's look at what pragmatic knowledge is, creating and interpreting discourse. Remember, humans are amazing at creativity. Computers are not. Our knowledge of pragmatic conventions, our knowledge of sociolinguistic conventions, these are things that are simply too fuzzy currently to be replaced. And I think this is what keeps us in our positions currently. And I think it'll, I don't see computers closing the gap anytime soon. That's actually all for me today. I don't think I'll use the full 10 minutes. I covered the points I wanted to cover. So once again, I'd like to thank Ron. I'd like to thank IATEFL, BESIG, and JALT BizCom. And thanks for your attention today. Cheers.
No, I'm sorry. I got 2 more minutes. Keep talking. Very good. That's pretty fast for your first one.
Yeah. Too fast.
You sure you're not a bot?
I'm sorry?
Are you sure you're not a bot? One of those robots.
I'll program one for next year.
Great. Well, this is something that I talk a lot about, worrying about the economics of language teaching and education in the future. And I certainly hope that you're right for all
Me
of our
too.
sake.
Me too, Rob.
Yeah. And Rob, thanks so much for doing it. And the good news is we hope to be seeing more of you in the next couple of years, right?
Yeah, I think I'm keen to come back, Rob. I like the scene. It's great people.
Well, we'd love to have you back. And, anytime, feel free to join us here on EFL Talks. And, we talked about BESIG before. So we'll see you again soon. And thanks again, Rob.
Thank you. Bye now.
Okay, bye. Okay, give me a second and we shall move on to our next speaker. And Pete, let me bring up your slides. Pete, I just gave you control. Hello, sir.
Hello there. Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you great. You're a little in the dark, but that's
okay. Sorry about that. I'll try and adjust my computer there. Sorry. Here we go. I'm in a very small university room, so maybe that's why it's dark.
No problem. But yeah, I was telling Pete before. Okay, let me reset my timing. When I first started going years ago back in Brazil to live presentations and conferences, Pete Sharma was actually the first person that I ever saw speak. And it's really a pleasure to have you here today. Your reputation in business English is wonderful.
Thanks, sir.
And I'm so happy to have you. Let me officially introduce you.
Great to be here.
Pete Sharma is well-known conference presenter, ELT author, specialized in educational technology, consultant, lecturer, teacher, trainer, dad, and a yoga enthusiast. I don't do yoga, so we won't talk about that.
Okay.
But thank you so much again for being here. And you have a new book out, right?
That's right, yeah. It's on blended learning.
And how do we get the book? Where's that available?
Pop up to my website and there'll be information up there. And the publisher is Pavilion, so they're the guys to be in touch with.
Great.
Right.
Okay. So, without further ado, thank you. I got the timer here. You've got 10 minutes, and take it away, Pete. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Well, you can see that this talk is about virtual reality, and your first task is to take a look at those 4 photographs and decide which is the odd one out. Okay, well, I hope that everybody here did find the odd one out. It's the one without a year. That's from an old book and film, The Man in the Iron Mask. But take a look at the other pictures there. It just goes to show that VR and putting on these kind of strange contraptions on our heads, it's been around for quite a long time. And unofficially, the 1993 picture, I actually believe, is the British Prime Minister, Theresa May, but maybe I've got that wrong. Who knows? So, what on earth is VR? Well, there's a photograph of my co-author, Barney. He's actually wearing a VR headset. It's an Oculus Rift headset. Mark Zuckerberg just taken over, Facebook have just taken over Oculus Rift. And once you're in there, if you have a look at the word map there, you can see some of the things that are happening in that environment in VR. You can see that you're immersed there. You can see stuff, obviously. Turn around. You can see 360 degrees, look up, look down. You might even get a sense of queasiness when you're in there. You can hear stuff, obviously. And if you put on special gloves, very, very often, you can also touch and feel things as well in there. I don't think you can taste anything. I don't think you can smell anything, but you know, tech moves so quickly nowadays. Maybe I'm wrong. So why on earth does VR exist? What uses are there for VR? Well, outside in the real world, curing phobias. So perhaps it's just as well that it wasn't around when J.K. Rowling wrote the Harry Potter series, because otherwise Ron could be cured of his fear of spiders by having maybe a little bit of a spider every day just creeping in, and Jimmy Stewart wouldn't be scared of tall buildings. These kinds of ways of helping people with phobias by going into a VR environment and then having just a little bit of what they're afraid of. And the pilots there in Airplane, I mean, your pilot clearly was trained in this kind of simulation. And surgeons, there's one on the right, actually with a VR headset performing an operation and feeling the knife going in. So these kinds of uses of VR are everywhere. So please think what you might do after this talk. There are 3 levels of VR experience that you could have. Maybe you'll just have a low-end experience like Ronnie Corbett. That's not too expensive. You might have a medium experience using this kind of contraption, and that's what I'm using with my students. And you could have a high-end experience, which will cost you a lot more money. And I'm going to talk about those experiences now. So let's kick off with a low-end experience. That means you could just turn on your computer, go to YouTube 360. You don't even need a headset to do that. Just start to move the picture around, and you can see that these videos are really, really very different from just you know, the ordinary screenshot. You can see all the way around. So the pictures that you might take now on a 360-degree camera, they can be pushed through VR. So a low-end experience might be using Google Cardboard, for example, not terribly expensive at all, and they're being used very, very much you drop your phone in, and then you can have a relatively inexpensive experience. So let's move on to medium experience. That's what I've bought recently, Gear VR. I've had to buy a Samsung phone, and I get my little controller there, which I can use to move and go through the environment. So a medium experience is very, very accessible. I was in John Lewis just yesterday, and the guys there were already demonstrating this kind of experience. Let's go up now to a high-end experience. This is where you have equipment like HTC Vive, and this is really the real McCoy. You put this on and you really think you are climbing Everest. It's so realistic, and you've got special gloves there. I mean, it's quite brain-destroying. It's still not too expensive for the equipment, but what really kills you is you do need a new computer. There is no way you can get by without a super fast chip, the kind of stuff that's used for gaming. So moving on to gaming, that's a completely different way into VR. So you could, if you're experienced with things like Sony PlayStation or Microsoft Xbox. So my daughter's boyfriend is very, very experienced at gaming, and he spends most of his free time in there killing people, which is not really an ELT thing to do. So let's bring this now into the world of language teaching. Let's imagine you want to learn a language. So you get your VR headset, you go into a program such as, here's an example, Mondly. This lovely avatar wanders up to you and she says, "What would you like to drink?" And on the right, you can see you've got various options there that you can say. So you have to click in order to actually speak into a microphone. This uses voice recognition. And if you say it clearly enough, then the program will move on to the next thing. And it's quite interesting that my partner was trying to learn a language in here, and it wouldn't recognize what she was saying. And so eventually she actually got very frustrated, which is very, very interesting. So even though VR is supposed to be motivating, it might not always be motivating. Down on the right, you can see VR boxes, so you can hire these and give them out to your students. So moving from language teaching into business English, what kind of things are around? Well, if you've got a phobia of public speaking, put your headset on. You can go into things like this where you can walk into this auditorium and move around there. You've got the screen and just act as if you're actually going to give a speech. Down on the left here, you've got a website. That's the IKEA VR experience. So you can put your headset on, walk around this kitchen. And this on the right is brain destroying. This is about 8 airports, I think, in Germany now have this. If you want to buy a car, you sit on that seat. You can see the guy there, he's got his headset on, and for him, that car is real. And when I got out of that seat, people on the outside were laughing at me. But I'll tell you, the roof was there. To me, that felt like a roof. So I think it's going to be in the area of ESP, English for Specialist Purposes, perhaps a little subset of business English where I think VR is really going to take off. I mean, there's programs to train the military. I mean, you've got an option there, of course, of facing real bullets, or you could put on your headset and do it that way. It's very big in medical areas, such as this lady here unpacking that skeleton. And I was just reading a lot of the current research, and one of the papers I came across, which was very interesting, was actually going in to somewhere like Chernobyl, actually walking around, seeing what it's like. The Economist recreated Mosul, old civilizations from the past. Again and again in the literature, it comes through. You can do stuff in VR which you can't do in real life. I think that's really where we're going. And so that's a good thing to think about, maybe for the chat box. Type in areas where you think VR might take off. But like everything, it's always controversial. Someone said years and years of communicative teaching, and now what we're actually asking our students to do is strap on a headset and become invisible. Haven't we been here before? I mean, Second Life was around, but that became very, very, very marginalized. So the answer is yes, in a way we have been here before. But even when you've got a headset, you know, you can link that to a computer screen. So you can have students giving instructions to the person that's actually in the VR area. So there's no silver bullet, as we know. We'll still be thinking critically about all these different technologies, and it always comes back to the pedagogy. I'm going to use my last 5 seconds to go now into guided meditation. So goodbye. Sorry. So, can't turn my timer off. Sorry, can't turn my timer off. Hopefully that was 10 minutes.
That was perfect. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Great pleasure.
Think about, and pleasure to have you here, as I said. And
right.
I hope
My
I'll
pleasure.
see you out. Okay.
Great. Cheers. Bye now. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Great. So we'll move on, and we'll step out of Second Life, and we'll step into another life. Let me find our next speaker. And as soon as I find them, give me a moment. Okay, here we go. Adi, there we go. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me okay? Yes, I can.
Sounds perfect. Hang on, let me get your slides up here. And then I'll officially introduce you. Well, Adi, thanks for doing this. And great to have you here.
Pleasure's all mine.
And to introduce, for those of you who don't know Adi Rajan is a business English ESP trainer and teacher and educator from Mumbai, India. He's interested in ed tech and multilingual approaches. And it's a pleasure to have you here. And I was reading your presentation before, and I'm very much looking forward to what you have to say. So I really appreciate you doing this and being here today. What time is it out there? You're late, right?
It's 8:30. It's not too late.
Oh, not too late. Okay, good. Great. Well, I've got your timer here. You got 10 minutes. You have control of the slides, and thanks again. And take it away.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me, and hello, everyone. I'm going to talk to you about an app called Feedly, which is a news aggregator, and I'll describe how I use it for specific activities in the Business English and ESP classroom. But before I do that, I'd like to tell you a bit about my context and my learners, because I initially started using Feedly to address a need that they experience. And Shanti says she loves Feedly. Sorry, I'm not supposed to look at the chat. Sorry about that. So I work with professionals in India who are mostly from the knowledge services industry. So they work with consulting and technology and so on, and they collaborate with global stakeholders. They have a fairly high language proficiency, I think similar to what Shanti mentioned. And understandably, my courses tend to focus on discourse, pragmatic, and intercultural competence. And the need that keeps coming up is really from this area, because my learners have a lot of challenges engaging their stakeholders in small talk. And when we say small talk, it's not sort of the EFL perception of small talk, which is generally about the weather or about what you did over the weekend. Because I think mostly in business conversations, and particularly in consulting conversations, small talk is usually about what's happening in your domain or your industry. I've heard a lot of conference calls, I've attended meetings, I've shadowed people as they've, through their workday, and I've noticed that their conversations are generally very, very transactional. And this is unfortunate because there is, of course, an important social function in business for being able to engage your clients or your leadership about what's happening in your industry. And that social function is, of course, you're able to demonstrate your credibility and your expertise. You're able to develop a working relationship with your stakeholders, and perhaps potentially even deepen customer accounts, because in the future you might be able to cross-sell some services. So there are clearly some benefits of this kind of small talk to both the individual and the organization. Now, you might be thinking, if you are perhaps an expert in your area, surely you should be able to speak about your industry with your customers. But I find that's not true with my learners. And I think it's because my learners rarely read. The only time they get input is when they attend a mandatory training program, and that might be quite infrequent, or if they might hear a leader speak and then they get some insights from that, or they hear the managers sharing some information in a meeting. Other than that, some of my learners get subscriptions to these role-based email alerts. So the organization says, okay, here's an email with stuff that might be relevant to you. But for the lack of a better word, it's often just organizational propaganda. So there's just internal thought leadership that they're recycling and sending out to employees. So for example, recently I noticed an email which is full of articles about how the organization is doing really well with automation, but actually that organization is lagging behind in terms of automation. So if you were only to rely on this kind of information as an employee, as a consultant, you don't have much to go on because you have a flawed view of what's happening in the market. So their knowledge of their own industry is actually surprisingly shallow. And there's no concept of CPD as we have in teaching, for example. And so I wanted to choose an app that would help kind of help them understand that there is a lot out there and be able to get a quick glimpse and sort of an overview of what's available and quick updates as well. So they really need to be on top of what's happening in their domain and also translate this into business conversations with their clients. And I chose Feedly for that. And some of you probably use Feedly, and Shanti mentioned she likes Feedly. It's a great tool because it gives you feeds from different sites. Now, on Twitter and Facebook, we follow people, but on Feedly, you follow blogs and you follow sites. And the way it works is you pick up a website or a blog, you put it into your Feedly account, and then you follow it. And the great thing is that after you follow it, you can then organize it into thematic feeds. So if you perhaps work for a certain industry like oil and gas or renewable energy, you can organize all that in a way that makes it easy to read it later. There's also a fantastic smartphone app. That's actually the one I use. So that's the one on the right. And it gives you an image, it gives you a preview and the title as well. So it makes it really easy to go through a lot of information and articles. So when I initially introduce my learners to Feedly, I find that's also a very interesting and useful activity. So I get them to download the app, and then I have them populate the app with articles that might be relevant to them. And I don't make this general. I don't just say, go out and find some articles. I say, I give them specific tasks like the ones I have on the slide. Find feeds from 3 parallel industries or domains to follow. And this one I think is very important because a lot of Indian learners or Indian professionals tend to have a very narrow view of their work. So if they, for example, work in oil and gas, they only focus on oil and gas and they don't look at parallel industries. And really in today's world, it's so important to think about other sectors because everything's interconnected, multi-sector and transdisciplinary. Also things like finding feeds from 10 thought leaders from your industry to follow, or following a competitor or a site that's critical of your organization, so you get some contrarian views as well. And they do this outside class, and when they come back for the next lesson, I have them compare their feeds. And generally, I find that they follow the same people and the same sites. And then we have an interesting conversation about groupthink and the value of a diversity of ideas and perspectives. Of course, Feedly lends itself to reading. Obviously, it's about reading, right? So some of the tasks I do are get them to read and preview the preview and predict what it might be about. And that's, I think, a valuable life skill, given that you have no information overload in the digital world. Also, things like reviewing your feed and selecting the top 3 trends or events, explaining why. So there's some critical thinking connected to what I think Bram was saying earlier. Finding 3 items in your feed which will interest your client, so you make a note of that. Finding new insights, data points, studies, and you write that down as well. And saving articles related to a certain topic to a board. So there are boards within Feedly, so you can save articles there. So I might announce a topic for the day, for example, automation in healthcare, and then they find stuff and they save it to a board. The next step, of course, is to take this into a conversation because that's what you need to do in life as well and in business. So I might get them to plan a conversation starter, make some notes around it about how they might translate these insights into an article. And they practice this with a partner in a group. And then I say, now go off and do it in an internal meeting with a colleague. Try slipping this insight in. And then if it works for you, do it with a client as well. And they come back to the lesson, report back on that. Some of the other activities are drawing parallels between an industry trend, something you've picked up from your reading, and a project event. So again, are you able to weave in insights from reading into business conversations? And finally, this one's more conventional. Take a stand or share an opinion on an article. I think Feedly also lends itself well to writing, really simple but authentic writing tasks. So I might get them to tweet from within the app about the article. It could be the gist, they could agree, they could disagree, they could also highlight a key point. But my learners prefer using LinkedIn. They don't see the value of Twitter. So they might do some similar stuff on LinkedIn. And the last activity, which I like, I'm not sure if my learners like it, get them to write an email. If you notice, there is an email icon also. So they could write an email to a client or a colleague recommending the article. And I think that's a really valuable skill because it kind of helps them practice language. It also helps them think about how they would be making a recommendation and sharing something that they've read. So I try to incorporate 5 minutes of Feedly in most of my courses now. So when they come to the lesson, I don't tell them to put their smartphones away. I tell them to take their smartphones out and look through their feeds and report back on on anything they find interesting. And I think this encourages some good behavior, some learner training happening here, which is that they're getting used to looking at Feedly and looking at articles on it, and really getting used to this idea that that you should be looking at insights within your industry and also across industries and feeding this back to your stakeholders. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
That's great. And you ended up short on time too. Great. Well, that was really informative. And I'm not familiar with this app, but I want to check it out now. Lots of interesting things. And really, thank you again for doing this.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks. And we'll move on from India. We're going to head off to the Netherlands. And Anna, bring up your slides. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hey, great. We have a
Can you hear me
picture.
well? Can you hear
Yes,
me? I have a
fine.
new headset. You know that story.
Yes, you went off to the city center. Thank you.
Exactly. I lost. Yes. I misplaced my old one, but never mind.
Oh, great. All right. So let's see. We have controls. Let's see how the internet holds up. Okay, let me introduce Anna. Anna Iosco is in the Netherlands, and for 12 years she's been at the Arnhem Business School in the Netherlands as an English and business communication lecturer and student coach, and now she's the owner of English Mastery, Communicating with Presence. And I'm also very flattered and happy to say one of my past students and one of my present friends.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think Evan and Donna are still here. I saw them here earlier. I would like to officially tell them Anna is one of our newest BESIG members. Yes?
Yes.
Good.
Totally.
Great. So, welcome aboard. And I appreciate you being here. We got the timer going.
Yes, we got the timer going.
So, take it away.
Here we go. Yes. Thanks a lot. No, Rob, first of all, thank you for setting the stage and for today and allowing me to be one of the actors, you know, in such a great lineup of speakers. I'm really delighted to be part of this play, to stay in Shakespeare's terms. And I quickly would like to introduce you to the key influences in my life. So that's my mother. I think you can tell. She's a very highly intelligent person, very loving human being. So thanks for that. And not only do I have to thank her for my life, for me being present here, but also for a huge number of people, ideas, and places she introduced in my life. And as you can see on the right, we both love singing, and we aim to keep it going in our families so for future generations. Now, today, the concepts I am going to present today are really ideas, and they are merely scratching the surface of everything that it entails. And I would love to invite you to let your mind wander and wander and hopefully get inspired or even fired up to integrate various disciplines in your teachings. Now, I'm a huge fan of interdisciplinary approach, and I'm sure this was my mother who gave me a major push in that direction. So I was always surrounded by musicians and craftsmen, people of art, scientists, and talking of which, let me see, yes, here we go. In my early teen years, my mother met a brilliant scientist, a really one of the kind. Unfortunately, she died a couple of years ago, but she was the one to develop a model, an AD model, a hierarchical multi-level system where the world processes are shown in their relations to each other. And in her foreword, by the way, to her last manuscript, she said that her mathematics was based on her ancestors' tongue, language, Homer's Iliad, and Belarusian folk music. Now, in my university years, I worked with her for almost 1 year, trying to integrate languages and computer automation into her system. And what really stuck with me, and you can see it there, is that in her theory, mathematics, languages, arts have this prominent, very deserving, highest position in the hierarchy. Now, you know, mathematics and languages I understood, but very often I was puzzled with arts. And then I left Belarus for the Netherlands, and in 2006 I started working at Arnhem Business School. Now, and this is how I organically moved into teaching, into coaching and teaching business English. And luckily I discovered that I was good at that. Now, somewhere in 2010, my dear friend and colleague back then said, hey, we are looking for a soprano, and I heard you sing, fancy joining us? And this is what I did. And this is the result. An amazing experience staging Leo Delibes' Lakmé, and a couple of years later playing Papagena in Mozart's Magic Flute. Now, my mind started making connections, really. First, if you look at the whole production, you can see it as a project. You need to find your cast, finances, marketing, selling, and all that. Now, second, while learning my music, so my lines, I really experienced it as learning a new language. And I was blown away by the complexity of music composition and how it organically all matched and just came out so beautifully. And then the orchestra. I mean, take a conductor, a wonderful example of a business leader. Take musicians, an exemplary team. They have to listen to each other, they have to collaborate, they have to fade away or really take the lead if necessary. And the instruments, that was, to me, was the really magic part of it. The instruments of the orchestra, it's an epitome of multiculturalism. You know, take Belarusian cymbalines or Moroccan bells and everything that comes in, or Italian violin, all in the team, all working together, all enriching each other. Now, approximately at the same period, I met this person. Again, my mother introduced, yet again, me to Mikhail Kazimik. And this is all, this is exactly the moment when it all exploded for me and also in my mind. And he gave a couple of ideas, and he talks about classical music and structures connected to poetry, prose, architecture, now you name it. And as I taught business communication, I'm still teaching, of course, my neurons made multiple connections again, and I could relate processes in business communication and classical music. So I see it as a, let's say, the whole developing of business as a creative process. And if you do it right, and if you apply musical structures, you can also create an organic, balanced, and extremely let's say a beautiful structure that is respectful of all its constituents. Now, I'll give you quickly, yes, 3 minutes, some examples. So sonata form has 3 stages. You can see, I see it as a project, you know, exposition, when ideas are presented, your goals, visions, Now, let me see, you name it. And this is, let's say in a sonata form, this is also where the conflict creeps in. That moves to the development stage when you have like an explosion of creativity. Your research, your testing, speculating, and doing everything, let's say, that is necessary to discover. And paradoxes are welcome there, and you can do marvelous things, and then moves naturally to the last stage, and that is recapitulation. Everything comes back, the themes come back, and they are together in the same tonality. This is the time to make conclusions and to take decisions. Ronde form, very quickly about this, you can see that in this musical form, for example, is very, I almost think about conversation, negotiation, or even lobbying, because A presents an idea, B says, aha, that's an argument, and A says, right, and changes it back to a sort of variation on his initial idea. Then C comes in and A is influenced again. So you can see like A, for example, being a decision maker, and B, C, D, A as the lobbyist. Now, this is my favorite, and Einstein's as well. This is a mathematical perfection and a process that explores one simple idea in a very complex form. So you can see, let's say 4 lines is the maximum. They all seem very independent. They can have different tones, different structures, but those vertical lines, they're immensely connected because they create chords. So I see it as an ultimate business conversation where people can have different ideas, they can have different opinions, they come from different cultures, have various personalities, but still are very willing to strike the chord and to agree on certain concepts. So that's the willingness of that. So I imagine if that is too much for you, I would just say introduce classical music and bits and pieces of that into your classrooms, because you can see on the upper head is what classical music does. It activates very particular parts of your brain that nothing else activates, and below you can see a musician playing music, so studying. So if you can have someone bring in their instruments and play, that would create fireworks and ignite the whole creative process. So yes, I have to round off, and I have to say these are all bits and pieces of ideas, and I'm rightfully restricted, but you know, it's a huge topic, and I do hope that you can use this wisdom of both classical music and everything in your classes. And the last slide is about everything that I had to remove from my presentation, which you can see this is all very much connected to arts and different disciplines. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anna. That was great. Did you
Yes,
enjoy your
it was my first EFL talk, but it was my first internet thing at all. And believe me, I had to leave out even 1/3 of what I thought I would be able to say. So yes, next time better.
Good, great. Well, anytime, you know, you're always welcome. And
thank you.
Talk soon. And
yes, talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks again for being here.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye now. Okay, and for our last speaker, we go off to Brazil. And bear with me while I go through the list and find him. Stephen, ready? There we go. And let me get your slides. Okay, Stephen, you should turn on your mic and camera, please. up at the top. If they're showing green, just where the mic and the camera, they probably have a slash through them. Just click those on. And okay, well, while we're waiting for Stephen, we'll give him a few minutes and talk about what else we have here. While we're waiting for him to come on, again, I want to thank, this is all part of IATEFL BESIG. Evan and Don are here. I know some of the other committee members and a lot of you BESIG members are here. We thank you for the support as always. And Alan, I believe, is still here from JALT BizCom SIG. And what we're doing is these recordings will be shown on September 8th and 9th. And again, we'll talk about that at the very end at the JALT BizCom SIG. And if you're in Japan, I know that Evan and Donna will both be speaking there, as well as other BESIG members from around the world. And we're not getting Stephen. Okay, we'll give him a minute. Let me go ahead and we'll talk about some of the other things in the meantime, and we'll see if we can get Stephen. If not, we'll have the recording available later. Yeah, Stephen, you have to turn the camera and the mic on up at the top. You've got controls here. I don't know why it's not coming on. Let me try it again. Okay, you have controls that worked fine before. Okay, so I'll continue on talking while you do that. If you have to, go out of the room and come back in again. Use the same link and just come back. Ah, there you go. Great. Hello.
Going on. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you fine. The internet is a little bit slow,
Right.
so you know what I might have.
Great.
Yeah, it's the internet that you have there seems to be a little bit slow. If we have a problem, what I'll do is I'll mute your camera.
Yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah, I know you're in a cafe to get internet there, but why don't you mute your camera if you go up there? Just go up to the camera where it's green and click on the camera. That will mute it.
All right.
All right. Okay, so we can still hear you. All right, Stephen, thanks for doing this. And I know we've been talking
right.
for years.
Yeah, that's it.
So to introduce Stephen Hughes, he's from Brazil. He's been involved in ELT, teacher trainer.
Now, using
adjunct.
lines.
Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Okay.
All right. Well, let's
right.
try. I'm going to mute my camera. Just go ahead and talk, and you got 10 minutes, okay? All right. Just go ahead, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have too much of a delay. Well,
Yep.
the internet doesn't always work.
All right. Thank you. So again for having me, and it's been really. You ready? Yeah. Can I go? Can I go? All right. Great. So as I wanted to thank again, Rob, just for the opportunity to be here and to participate in such a great event. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm.
Hold on. Yeah. Do I need to start again, Rob?
Yeah, I think the internet. Can you hear me now? I think the internet is going
Hello?
to be too slow.
Okay. Just let me know if I can you.
Okay. All right. Well, sorry for the technical problems. What I'll do is I apologize that we couldn't bring you, Stephen. What I'll do though is we'll get together and we'll record that later, so we'll have it available later. That's a shame. But thanks, Stephen, for trying, and we'll get us a better internet connection and we'll work that out. So, really, that's it for today. But before you leave, just to share a little bit of information, and we hope that you join us. Our Facebook group is EFL Talks, and we also have EFL Talks Teacher Development. But if you have a CEFLI, send them to me, and we'd love to put them up on the page. And let me just skip ahead. Some of the great things that I'd like to tell you about is coming up on August 26th at 12 p.m. UTC. We'll be doing a live Twitter chat with JALT and the IATEFL BESIG. Some of our members, I believe Kirsten and Sue and Grace, will be helping out along with Alan and Rab and Dan from JALT BizCom and doing a live Twitter chat. So that's on August 26th. If you go to BESIG.org, we'll have some information on that, or follow us on the BESIG page on Facebook. After that, I will be hosting September 2nd, our weekend workshop. We're going to do a teaser for Exploring the Frontiers. Now, this is part of the Yash conference coming up in Romania in November, which we hope you all join. And 10 of our speakers are going to give you a little taste about what frontiers they're going to explore and how they'll explore them. So we hope you join in. And of course, the link, as always, go to besig.iatefl.org to get that and join us. And on September 8th and 9th, JALT will be doing their live conference in Tokyo, if you can make it. I know Evan and Donna will be there. And the BESIG, we will be showing a few of the talks simulcast over our Adobe channel. So stay tuned for news for that. Again, go to the site or follow the BESIG page. And I really hope that if you're not a BESIG member, we hope you join us. It's a great organization. It's a great SIG. You can get much more information on that. We've got some great members that were here and joined us today, and future members, I hope. And any information, I know that the EFLtalks.com site is down right now, but it'll be back up Monday or Tuesday. and running again. And so first of all, let me thank Alan and Rab and Dan, who originally came to me and discussed doing something for JALT. And the reason we put this together, these recordings will be shown at the JALT conference. I want to thank Evan and Donna and the rest of the BESIG team. Oksana, thank you for moderating and helping out. And go BESIG. And I also want to thank Nellie Deutsch, who's responsible for letting me use her platform here on WizIQ. And I want to thank all the speakers. Unfortunately, Stephen will get his recording up later. Alex couldn't be here. We'll try and get a recording from her. And all these will be available in about a week on the EFLtalks YouTube page. And thanks to all of you. I couldn't do this without you. And for all of you that were watching and took part, thank you for being here, taking time out. And I hope you join us in the future and become EFL talkers. So on behalf of BESIG, on behalf of JALT, Alan, and everybody else, thank you, and I hope I see you all in Romania. Ciao, arigato, everything I can think of. Dziękuję.